Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking to Kevin from a fantastic YouTube channel called The Royal We, where he talks about narcissistic abuse and emotional abuse and gaslighting and how to heal from it. There are two parts to this video. The first part is Kevin interviewing me and asking me all sorts of questions about your reality film, how I came up with the idea, what inspired me, and also we break down some of the scenes in the short film for you. And the second part of this video is the video that you're watching right now, where I ask Kevin some questions, ask him about how he got started, and also ask him for some advice on how to deal with narcissistic abuse, especially when it's within your own family, and also how to heal from it. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for taking the time and to answer some of my questions. Kevin, it's a pleasure. I really enjoyed watching your analysis of your reality. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, please make sure to check it out, because I think it's very, very good. It's spot on how you broke everything apart and analyzed and seen all the red flags that I've put into the short film. So I obviously I watched quite a few of your videos, and you talk a lot about narcissism and a bit of gaslighting as well, and just emotional abuse in relationships, as well as in general on your channel. So I just wanted to ask you how you got into that topic and what inspired you to start your YouTube channel.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you, Tatiana, for having me. Thank you so much. By the way, I'm a huge fan of your work. I'm a huge fan of your film. It was very brilliantly done. I know that you put trigger warning on your movie. And listen, I had moments in the movie where I was triggered. You really hit close to home. You really spoke to a lot of things that I've experienced on a personal level. And so the Royal We started out of my own personal experience with narcissistic abuse, as a lot of channels do. There's a lot of channels out there with people who are doctors and psychologists and authors and people who have studied psychology, and I'm not one of those people, by the way, not at all. I am some poor sap, not a poor sap, just a guy who really fell into a pit of experiencing trauma of relationships. And when I started the Royal We channel, I was coming out of a toxic relationship with some siblings, some in-laws, to be perfectly honest about it. But what I realized about that situation that I was experiencing, the narcissistic abuse, which happened to cause a lot of pain in my life. But on my healing journey, if I could summarize the Royal We and what the Royal We is all about, is that I realized that that relationship, which was only 7 years ago, wasn't really the pain. It was a painful, traumatic experience, the rejection, the betrayal of people I tried to fit in with, I tried to belong to. And as a result, I kept walking into the relationship like a fool, even though I was being abused. They found my vulnerabilities. They saw that I needed them. I needed these people in my life. And that's part of the problem. And that's what happens in abusive relationships, is you start to desperately need these people to be something other than they're not. I mean, something other than what they are, which is abusive people in a way, bullies, or, you know what I mean? But what happened is I had to look back in my healing journey. And I realized that I saw it all my life. I was brought up in a home where I watched my mother go through abuse. My father left when I was 4, and he was on wife number 4 before he passed away. So his life interest was more about women chasing than being with his family. And then I had a stepfather, and he was abusive towards my mom. And I think I reached a point where I was in grade school and then high school, and I escaped. I escaped the home. I escaped that abuse that I had grown up seeing, and I put it behind me, and I dove into doing things in life, being involved in church, being involved in sports, as a way to escape. And I think what I discovered is that if I can be something great, I'll never experience abuse again. And I started to distance myself from it, and I thought, well, maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe my mom just picked bad guys, and maybe, and so I put it all behind me. And then when I got married and saw it again in my in-laws, it brought it right back into my face. Boom, hello, abuse is real, it's here. It's not going anywhere, Kevin. Not only that, but instead of it being a big, terrifying stepfather, now it was in the form of girls. And yeah, the abuse I took on happened to be from girls, primarily. And and this is an interesting thing because a lot of people out there don't think that narcissistic abuse can come from girls. There's a lot of guys out there that go through horrible stuff because of wives that are just off the charts with weirdness, and or women they come across, or sisters or whatever, and they don't quite know how to talk about it because it is uncomfortable. How do you tell people that you've been abused by a woman emotionally? It's just so hard. We as men are taught not to.
Yeah.
And so I was in pain and suffering and silence and processing what I was experiencing. I didn't know how to fight back in the situation. I mean, I was having things thrown at me, and I was being cussed at and called names. But at the end of the day, to me, what I was being told was that abuse is something, it's a bigger part of life. It's a big part of life if we don't know who we are as individuals. And so the Royal We's purpose for me is, again, not to make out narcissistic people as evil, demons far and few in between, but instead to look at it as, listen, it can be a very cruel world. People can inherently be selfish and self-serving. It's up to us as individuals to know who we are, to value ourselves, to find our place in life, to find our purpose in life, and to live from there. And then allow the right people in our life to come alongside of us and line with us. Because if we don't know who we are and we're not aware, then we kind of just follow wherever we think looks good. And that's what I was doing.
Absolutely.
And so I fell into that, and it was very painful, and it did change me as an individual. I haven't been quite the same since that experience, but I think that I'm better in a lot of ways. So there's parts of me and parts of narcissistic abuse. I look at it also as this pruning experience. And I think that it kind of takes away, it shaves off the soft areas of your life where you're vulnerable, and allows you to really kind of see the world for what it is, take yourself seriously, take life a bit more seriously. At some point we got to stop getting out there and partying and like, woo, life is fun and you're cute and you're hot. And instead we've got to say, whoa, wait a minute. I've got a short time here on this earth. What am I doing? Who am I spending it with? Am I making something good, or am I just trying to fit in? So thank you I hope that answers the question.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much. Just based on that, what advice would you give actually for people who are experiencing emotional abuse, especially within sort of like family or somewhere where it's kind of a bit hard to just go completely no contact, right? Because usually like the best thing is, just get as far away from them as possible, change your phone number, change your address, try and like not, get any contact. But what do you do if it's family? What advice would you give?
Wow, that is an excellent question. It's a complex question too, but I'm glad that you asked that. I would say this, first of all, that narcissistic abuse primarily happens within the family. A lot of times, again, this goes back to my own personal experience. I thought it was just in-laws and siblings. Some people think it's just their boyfriend, it's their girlfriend, it's their coworkers, it's their whatever. But the truth is they've seen that before, and where they typically see it is in families, is in the family dynamic. I'm a firm believer that that's our first experience of abuse, whether it's neglect, whether it's overbearing, yelling, screaming, cussing. Families typically are where the darkest secrets and the things that are swept under the rug exist. Family structures are where you find the hierarchies of the golden child, the scapegoat, and this can be very hard for people to process and understand. And I think that it's a cultural thing that has led people to believe that you have to stay involved with family members. that you can't break free of that. When my perspective, and you can take this how you want, the audience can take this how it wants, but I tend to lean on a biblical stance on this. And the biblical stance is this. And well, there's two. A lot of people will say, honor thy mother and thy father. That doesn't mean stay with them forever. The biblical stance that I lean on is this, that in the beginning, it was commanded, therefore, a man and a woman shall leave thy mother and thy father and become united with a brand new partner, and the two become one flesh. And I believe the ancient perspective is this. This is the cycle of life, that people grow up, they're raised in a family, but then they cut themselves free, they detach completely, mentally, emotionally, physically, and they become united and form a brand new family. This is typically the cycle with all creatures. I think that there's this, we've grown into this idea that families always stick together. And I look at the response, I'm a parent myself. My responsibility as a parent is to raise my children up so that at one day, at some point in life, they leave and they become productive people in society. If I raise my children to always be here with me, then I failed. If I teach them that they have to be connected with me, then they failed. I think that social media has caused a problem because it's made people feel like they can't get away. And I'd like to end it with this as well. For people who are struggling with family dynamics and you don't know if you can leave, listen, there was a point in time where our ancestors left their family, right? I think, Tachana, you said you have relatives in Germany. You know, I have relatives Ireland or wherever, and I think we forget that our great-great-great-great-grandparents, at some point in time, they straight up left their mom and dad. They're like, we're leaving Europe or wherever. Peace out, mom and dad. We're going to America. And they hopped on a boat, came over, and never talked to their parents again. There was no social media. There was no email. There was no phones. And they just went based on what life is about. Moving, detaching, moving, starting something new. So this isn't for everybody, but for those who are struggling in toxic dynamics, I believe with family, I believe that what's being screamed internally inside of you is that you don't belong in this place. Yes, they raised you. Yes, they brought you up, but that doesn't mean that you belong to them forever. And if you're hurting, I believe it's something inside calling you to something new, to something else. Your family, perhaps, is waiting for you. And I think we need to stop looking at family as just being our mom, dad, brothers, and sisters. I think going back to the Bible again, Jesus gave a very profound statement. He was teaching, and people ran to Jesus and said, Jesus, your mom and your brother, they want to talk with you. And Jesus' response in the story was, who is my mom and who are my brothers? You know, keep in mind, Jesus was in his 30s and he was teaching and he was preaching and he was healing. And in that scripture, he pointed to his disciples and he said, these people, this is my mother and my brother and my sister. And I think it's profound. What he's saying is that, listen, your family, when you become of age, your family is who's with you, what you're doing things with. Who's got your back? Your family changes. That's the message that I get from that. Your family can change. We need to be okay with letting go of what society and what the narrative of family is supposed to be. And we need to grab on to, well, where am I going? What's my purpose in life? And then what's my family look like around that?
Thank you so much. That's so insightful, Kevin. I really appreciate your response. Another thing I wanted to ask is that I recently watched a video of you where you talk about how narcissists, after you break up with them, that they give you this illusion that they're super happy, right? Because I think every breakup is difficult, and especially if they leave you, or even if you leave them, you know, you kind of like look back at that relationship and they're sort of like moved on really quickly from you. Just talk a little bit more about it, because I thought that video was so interesting.
Yeah, so this might get a little crude, but this is the reality of it. Narcissistic people live their lives for what's called supply in the moment. They're constantly living for what allows them to feel good. And in doing so, this allows them to not take anything really seriously, but look at everybody and people in their lives as just tools, momentary tools. And it's not necessarily a healthy way to live. I talked to a woman just last night because I take one-on-one appointments, and she was struggling because her ex-husband, who's in his 50s, after their marriage ended, he was off posting pictures with a 28-year-old girl, his new girlfriend. And she was really brokenhearted about this. And she's like, how can he do that? And I can't stop watching it. And I made this point to her. I said, listen, you as a woman, you're in your mid to late 40s, which, by the way, you're still in your prime. You're an attractive, gorgeous woman. If you really wanted to, you can go out there and find some young guy. And you can start going and doing all kinds of crazy things. If you really wanted to, you could do that. Could you not? Listen, you could find any guy you wanted to, and you can go and be that cougar or whatever, and post pictures of you and your bikini with your young new boyfriend, and any guy would be happy to do that with you. And I asked her this. I said, but is that what you want out of life? And her response was, no. And I said, okay, so stop looking at what he's doing, because what he's doing is basically nothing but buying time from an individual to fill that supply need of his. It's the same as going to a prostitute. There's no love in the situation. He's not moving on because he found somebody he loves or somebody that loves him. Okay? It's that he has the means to take this young girl, go on trips, do these fun things. It's the same as finding a prostitute. And like I said, if you wanted to live a lifestyle like that, you could do the same thing. But you don't want that. And so I think the point in this, and I know, like I said, at the risk of sounding crude, I believe that the message here is that we could, if it just comes down to this, narcissistic people, they want to just constantly fill that need for supply, whatever the cost, and it doesn't matter to them. But if you're hurting, and it means that you're deeper. You desire deeper connection. You desire real connection. And it's better to accept that about yourself, to experience the suffering, to experience the reality that you were with a narcissistic person who doesn't need that. But stay true and authentic to yourself and hold out for that relationship, even if it takes you longer, takes you more processing. Because the narcissist, at the end of the day, will have to do that over and over and over again with new people and have a constant revolving door. They figured out how to make that work, and they figured out how to live satisfied with that in life. But if you haven't, it's because you're not supposed to live like that. And so don't look at it and be envious of it or jealous of it. Look at it as, wow, they need constant tools in their life.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I would even add, someone commented actually on your reality YouTube video about to talk about narcissistic supply, and I think that's kind of sad that there are so many people out there that are still unaware of narcissism and gaslighting, and they give their love and they give their trust to these narcissists. And I think that's why that's the reason why, these narcissists can keep finding new victims. And I think that's why, for me personally, it's so important to spread the message and spread awareness that more and more people understand what it is and, can kind of cut off the supply, and not, engage with these narcissists and give them what they want, right?
Yeah, it can't be good living life for constant supply. But this is what narcissistic people have done. They've created their life where they constantly need to fill. They constantly need fun. They constantly need something exciting. And they don't want to take the time to, for whatever reason, they don't process things the same way that a person like you or I, or somebody who is suffering. They don't take the time to process that. They avoid that suffering. They reject it, if you will. They would rather just keep going, whatever that looks like. It's just constant source and constant supply. And so, yeah, I try to help people understand that there's no reason. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt to look at this, to look at somebody move on, to look like they're having fun. I think the thing that causes people to suffer in that and struggle with that is they think that the person they're with is getting some kind of version of them that you didn't get. They're getting the love and they're getting the stuff that you thought you should have. And it's not true. The new person,
right? Maybe in the beginning they do the love bombing, but then the whole cycle will go through again, right?
Yeah, the new person or anybody in a narcissistic individual's life is not getting anything different than what you got. The only difference in these situations is the person that they're with. So maybe they're with somebody who handles abusive relationships differently. So, for example, maybe you're with a guy that the guy left you for another girl, and it seems like they're out and about having a good time. Well, one, it's temporary, or two, maybe she's abusive too. And maybe they're beating the hell out of each other back and forth, and they like that for a longer time. But nonetheless, that shouldn't matter. All that should matter in healing from narcissistic abuse is you coming to radical acceptance that that's not what you want in life. That you don't want a relationship where you're beating the hell out of each other. That you don't want a relationship where you're being cussed at and called names. And that's all that should matter. Not, is that person getting the love that I didn't get? No, that person's not getting anything else. Because narcissistic people at the root, even though they can lie and even though they can love bomb, that doesn't change who they are as individuals. And you have to understand that the love bombing is always upfront. It's always temporary. It's always just a means to get something they want. And that's all that new person is getting. That's all that new person is getting. Some people will even say, but it's not fair because my ex went on and married somebody. And I was supposed to be the one they got married to. You know, and so how come they got married and how come I didn't get that? And my response is, listen, don't be jealous of that either. I mean, feel sorry for the person that's married to them because you know what a cheater they are.
Exactly. Be happy that it's not you.
Be happy it's not you because
divorcing a narcissist is like the worst from what I've heard. Yeah.
Right. Imagine what would your life look like if you were the one married to that situation. Look, he's going to be out cheating or at a strip club or wherever with his wife at home. You know, so again, take the reality of who these people are into consideration when you're thinking about when you feel that jealousy, when you feel like, you know, it's not fair. Well, it means that you have something better. It means you deserve better. And it doesn't go, obviously it might not be what you want. I also challenge people too, you know, you've created an idea of the narcissistic person that doesn't exist, just as much as they created an idea of you that doesn't exist. Your snapshot of that narcissistic person is that they were fantastic. It was the love bombing person. And you captured the person in that moment and you believe that that's really them and you're hanging on to that, even though they've shown you time and time again that that's not who they are. They're really, the only reason they did that is because they wanted to get your pants down in a week, and it worked. And after that, the real them comes forward and you're like, well, I missed that other person. Well, that other person got what they wanted. And it sucks, but you have to look at it as you were conned. You know, it's like buying snake oil. It really is. You know, you've got so much money and you see somebody with the wagon saying, "Hey, buy my stuff. It's gonna make your hair grow back." And you're like, "Oh, okay, I'll buy it." And then you try it and it doesn't work. You know, so we've got to realize that con artists, liars, cheaters, manipulators, they've been around in this world since day one. So really, our responsibility in this life is to recognize these red flags, know ourselves enough to know who we're dealing with, know what we like, know what we're looking for, know what we want, so that we can use that to judge. I tell people, judge in life. Be a judge. A lot of people say, don't judge others. No, judge others. You have to. If you don't judge people in your life, if you're not judgmental, then
you allow people to get in,
you'll fall for anything, right?
Definitely. That's so good. Thank you so much for all your amazing advice and tips and just your experiences. It's been such a pleasure, Kevin, to have you on my channel as well and to interview you. Thank you, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Tatiana, for having me. It is an honor for me to be here on your channel. Congratulations on your work, on your film. I am anxious to see more.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave me comments. Let me know if you have any questions or if you have any feedback, whether you want me to make any other videos about this topic. I'm all ear, and I really hope to see you again soon. Bye.